for people from Ukraine. And but the thing is, we don't know how many of those individuals will come to Waterloo Region. And we've had that in the past. And so there's a bit of a waiting game. The federal government has committed a number of settlement and other supports. And then yesterday, the provincial government, there's a lot of great news, especially around OHIP eligibility, and that newcomers from Ukraine would be eligible for OHIP. And I believe immediately that there won't be a waiting period. But again, we need to get some clarification on that. So far, we've only had a handful of Ukrainian families land in Waterloo Region. And I'm not sure when they started the process, but certainly the bigger wave of people coming hasn't started yet. In terms of housing, I've heard that there are provincial conversations about some sort of process to vet offers of housing. And that's just realizing that Ukrainians coming over are in a very vulnerable position. Not having connections, not knowing the system, not speaking the language, English or French, and likely primarily elderly children, single parent families, as many of the men I gather need to stay in Ukraine. And so the conversations about that, what that process will need to be, may slow things down a bit to figure out, what is the process to vet, and is there provincial coordination of this, or is it purely local? But it is in large part an effort to ensure Ukrainian families are kept safe and supported well. So that's a few pieces of where we're at. I think the key message is to be patient. We want to be prepared, but at the same time, we don't want to run ahead of the cart, so to speak. And then secondarily, again, thank you for your care and willingness to help. And, people will definitely reach out as soon as those details are figured out.
Thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate those updates. And yeah, we have a lot of people rushing to help right away. They want to help right away. And I think, being patient and just, slowly moving through and learning about what's going on in the situation is going to help you. And I know, Dan, I got involved because I was seeing posts on Facebook about, people needing homes, like young women and children needing homes, and then posting it on Facebook and people answering it. And I just thought, oh my gosh, how are they being protected? So I know at Waterloo Region Grassroots, we do have a team that's working on that to be soft landing for those Ukrainians. And we'll hear more about that a little bit later from one of our speakers. So Dan, thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll talk again. And if you have to go, I certainly understand you're very busy. So next, I want to introduce Isaiah Ritzman, and he's from an organization called Open Homes. And I met Isaiah a couple weeks ago on a video meeting, and we just started talking, and he and his group are willing to share some of their experiences and maybe give you some ideas of what you can expect. So Isaiah, I did see you on the call. So there you are. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. Hello. So go ahead, Isaiah. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Lisa. Hello, everyone. Happy to see so many people here tonight. So about 2.5 weeks ago, through my emails, I heard a little bit about Waterloo Region Grassroots Mobilization and the housing work that you're hoping to do. And I thought, aha, that this is a perfect collaboration between your group and our group through Open Homes. So a little bit of an introduction about Open Homes. So Open Homes is a collection of Canadian families here in Waterloo Region who have a practice of opening up their homes and welcoming refugee claimants to live with them for about 4 or 5 months at a time. So Open Homes is this community of hospitality that began slowly and in a small way about 8 or 9 years ago, but has since grown to be a collection of about 20 families in Waterloo Region who regularly practice this kind of hospitality. I myself, in different homes that I've lived in, have lived with folks from Eritrea, Iran, Colombia, and you'll hear all sorts of different experiences from our other hosts tonight. So there's a group of us who have this experience of practicing hospitality and welcoming newly arrived refugees into our lives over the course of many years. And we're not just sort of 20 independent families. We work together as a community and have a wider network of volunteers who come alongside our hosts and our guests as friends and supports for people as they settle in Canada when they first come here. So Open Homes is a grassroots network, a community. It grew out of a Mennonite church in Waterloo about 7 years ago, but it's since ecumenical and interreligious in nature. We're not a formal organization in any kind of way. We're just a grassroots community of hosts in a similar way to Waterloo Region mobilizes. And we work with a variety of partner agencies and churches, especially those serving refugee claimants. So part of the reason why we're having this connection tonight is Open Homes isn't doing any sort of direct organizational support for Waterloo Region grassroots mobilization, but we did think that some of our stories and some of our experiences would be useful for those of you who are opening up your home for the first time, to hear from folks who have done this type of hospitality over the course of years and what it's been like inviting people and living with people from a variety of cultural backgrounds and people who come from really tense and sometimes traumatic situations back home. So like I mentioned before, we were church-based, but now have grown into this wider ecumenical and interreligious network within Waterloo Region. But still at the core of what we do is hospitality. And the idea of personal hospitality is really sacred, and relationship is really important in everything we do. So I have had the privilege over the years on and off of walking alongside hosts, supporting hosts as they first open up their home and calling, checking in, debriefing, seeing how things are going. And what we've really learned is as hosts do this as part of a community rather than independently, they get to learn from each other, support each other, and feel more confident in what they're doing. Opening up your home can sometimes feel uncomfortable, uncertain. You don't know exactly what's going to happen. But we've learned in Open Homes that hospitality is ultimately, while sometimes challenging, always a really, really beautiful experience. So I hope as you hear from some of our hosts tonight, you feel inspired. And I do hope that some of you who this coming year, as you host Ukrainians, you might get bitten by the hospitality bug, which might, now that we're in a pandemic, maybe that's not the best analogy. Maybe there's another analogy I can use, but I do hope that some of you might be inspired to, like our Open Homes hosts, perhaps host long-term and begin to host different people from different cultures in your homes in the future. So that's a little bit about Open Homes. I'm gonna pass the torch on to some of our hosts. So we have 3 host families who are here tonight. And then they'll talk for a bit, they'll probably leave, but I'll stay till the end of the call tonight if anyone has any questions at the end. So right now we have Andrea Hill, Craig and Vicky Brown, and Leah and Jake Graham here. So I'm just going to pass the torch on to Andrea, who will share a little bit about her experience hosting.
Thanks, Isaiah. Yeah, it's quite interesting. As I was just preparing to share a few thoughts, my husband and I first hosted in 2005. And so it's been a number of years. And over that time, we've had the opportunity to host many families. I was trying to count them up and I kind of lost, I could think of 15, but I lost track after that. But we've been able to share our home with people from Zimbabwe and Afghanistan and Colombia, Honduras, Iraq, Pakistan, Venezuela, Ethiopia. And each time we've certainly learned a lot about the world, and both the good and the bad, amazing cultural things and just amazing glimpses into different ways of doing family and being family and community, and also learning about the less desirable things that are happening in places around the world. So it's certainly, we've had a great opportunity to develop relationships with people from all over the world, and just feel connected to these different places that we've grown to care about and learn about. And even though it's been 15 years since we had a family from Zimbabwe, every time I hear Zimbabwe in the news, my ears perk up and I feel a connection and passion for what's going on there. So it's been obviously a huge, an amazing experience for us and as a couple, and then later for our kids as we had kids and continued to host. It's been an opportunity for us to recognize our privilege and our, both in terms of the space that we have, but also our ability to navigate systems and figure out bus routes and interact with landlords in a way that can help people to be able to get places to rent when they might be otherwise overlooked, and our ability to navigate grocery stores and find what we need and get doctor's appointments. And so it's been an amazing chance to use some of those things that we take for granted and be able to support others as they need to develop those skills to navigate a new system in a new country. It's been great for our kids to develop a concept of sharing and just being in community with people who aren't part of the family. And it's been a time to stretch us to sort of exist counterculturally in a culture that talks about me and my space and my home and things like that, to be able to push ourselves bit by bit out of that and just become more comfortable with sharing and being together with others. One of Isaiah's questions just had been around some of the challenges of that. And so certainly there's been amazing things, and there's been lots of challenges along the way too. I won't deny that. Different people and even within one culture do things differently, but there's lots of differences in how families do things and how people clean and when people eat. I know we've worked through things with families who actually start their dinner prep at 9:30 or 10 to eat supper at 11, and pots and pans are banging around late in the evening. And there's some of the things that we never anticipated, but if you come from a home that has cement floors and no air ducts and things like that, you just dump buckets of water on your floor and you mop it around. And that's not the way we clean here with different kinds of homes. And so there's been lots of things to navigate, and we've gotten much better at knowing what to communicate to people ahead of time, and how to sit down and have a first meeting and not feel unwelcoming as we lay out some expectations and go over some things. For the first number of years, we felt like that was horribly unwelcoming, to invite people into your home and then go over all these things that we wanted to have happen in certain ways. So we've kind of learned over the years that there is a nice way to do that, and it actually makes whoever's coming into your home feel much more comfortable, because they're not wondering what's okay and wondering if they're going to upset you by doing something that they want to do. So we've learned a lot about open communication and kind of what works for us. And we've said, this is when we get supper ready and it's kind of busy in the kitchen. If we could kind of offset our times for that, that would make the flow of our home go more easily. And so that's just one tidbit of wisdom, I guess, I would bring in terms of inviting people in, just not feeling that hesitancy to communicate what your needs are, because especially over a 6-month period of time, you can live with things for a weekend. You can have house guests that do something that's annoying and you can deal with it for a week, 2 weeks maybe, but over the months that starts to cause problems. And if you didn't set out initially the way you want something, then it becomes more awkward how to talk about it later. And so just thinking about how you want your house to be and how people can coexist within it. So I'd say that's like one of the biggest challenges, but one of the things we've grown the most in figuring out, and just figuring out ways to have alone time and family time, and figuring out ways to navigate different expectations as well. When we've hosted single parents before, that's how much are we willing to kind of help parent or help supervise children, and how much do we need to be clear is not our role. And so there's some things like that to think about that can work out fine. It's just you sort of have to navigate what you're comfortable with and be open to communicating that. And just the last thing for people who have children, I know we've navigated through different expectations in different families around screen time and junk food. And, you know, in some families, their children had iPads out all the time, and my kids weren't allowed to have that. And my kids would say, you know, how come we can't have that? Or how come we can't have chocolate milk for breakfast? And so there's some differences like that, again, that initially seem like a problem, but they are able to navigate through. But it does just take a bit of communication, even within your own family. I'm just pausing to look at the chat because I know someone asked a question there, sharing how the time frame of that initial conversation. Just, you can correct, Jessica, just jump in if I'm not quite answering your question correctly.
Sorry, maybe after the call, could you share, maybe like write out how we should frame that conversation, just to make sure that we're welcoming?
So
and like what, sorry, go ahead, Isaiah.
Yeah, well, I was just noticing the time. I know that there are other folks after open homes tonight, so I'm cautious about going into too many details. But one of the kind of things I'm willing to do is, both at the end of the call tonight and through email, is sort of field questions and create like kind of a FAQ document for those who might need it.
Okay.
So if people have questions in the next 20 minutes or so for Andrew or any of the other hosts, or for myself, there'll be ways after the call for me to help field those.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, if I can just jump in, I'm Wendy. I'm on the housing committee as well. And I've been working with Isaiah, and there's a number of other associations that we're going to get the shared best practices and put them all together. So it won't be about hearing just one experience. We're going to try and get as many things as possible, and we're going to do the legwork to amalgamate that for you. So stay tuned, but we're all working together on it.
All right, I will end there, and I'm sure there'll be more resources coming, but I'm also, various people can get in touch with me if you have other questions too. I'm happy to be a support in whatever way I can.
Thanks, Andrea. Now passing the baton on to Craig and Vicki Brown.
Yes, we're on.
Oh, we're on.
We're
Okay. Here we are. Yeah, we we've hosted two since 2016, I think, or 15, but not as extensively maybe as the Hills have. But I would echo all of what she said. She really covered a lot of it. It's good to be welcoming, but also to set boundaries and to work things out. Communication is always good, and to set things at the beginning would be really very helpful. But I don't really need to go over that again because Andrea covered that really well. What I would like to say is that we've always had some help supporting us as we've hosted people. We called them partner circles. It doesn't need to be called that, but if you have some other people that can help you with maybe some of the appointments, if they're needing to go to medical appointments and things, that can take some of the pressure off of you. If you're providing the home and hosting them in your home where you live, it would help if someone else could help them figure out how to do the bus or take them grocery shopping. That gives you a little bit of free time that would free up time for your family. We've hosted people from Cuba, from Eritrea and Iran, and those are very different cultures, but still very rewarding every time that we had them. We were very happy to have done it. And we still are in contact with all of these people, not really often, but we text one another once in a while and just check on how they're doing. They've all have made their way pretty well in Canada here. And it's rewarding to know that you can welcome someone And while the ones that we're talking about now, the guests may not be staying here permanently, still for them to have a safe place to be when they haven't been in a safe place. It's a very good feeling, even with the challenges and things, it's a really good feeling to be able to contribute to that. It's part of what Isaiah said, it's that spirit of hospitality. Have I forgotten anything?
No, I just say Google Translate is your friend initially, at least, or the Apple version. I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, the communication can happen if they don't have any English and you don't speak Ukrainian, it's probably going to be a bit difficult. But like he said, use the Google Translate, or just even the smiles and the words and the demonstrating of how things work in your house. A lot of demonstration and showing them what to do. It's going to take time to do that. Yeah, we don't have too much else to say, Isaiah. We don't have as much input to give, I think, as maybe some of the others do. So I'll let you pass it on to the next couple, I think.
All right, thanks, Vicki and Craig. Lastly, Jake and Leah Graham, who I did see on this call somewhere.
Yeah, we're here. We're here. Thanks, Isaiah. So we've been hosting since 2019. We've had the opportunity to host 3 times. The first was a couple from Colombia, and they spoke very little to no English. And then at the beginning of the pandemic, we had an individual from Ethiopia, and he was with us for about 3 months. And we're currently hosting another individual from Colombia. So he's currently staying with us now. So we're going through this process, as we speak. I guess just give a little background on us and our hosting experience, how we got involved. We were a little apprehensive at first about sort of the way the house was set up. We would be, sharing the kitchen with someone. A lot of times, it might be easier if you had a separate apartment or something like that, but you're able to make it work even with just a bedroom for them, and sharing the kitchen and, learning to share your space again. I think that's one of the biggest adjustments is sharing space, maybe after you haven't had to do that in a while. But to touch on some of the joys and, the good things about hosting, it's being able to help others. And, there's a desperate need out there for the people of Ukraine, Colombia, all over the world. And so to be able to, fill that need and help them out, it's really rewarding. Definitely feels great to be able to help out that way. It's also great to connect with people that you otherwise would never meet. You get to experience cultures from around the world, and just great experiences there. Like Craig and Vicki mentioned, like Google Translate, it's your friend. But there can also be some mishaps and odd translations. So definitely get a few laughs out of that, and second tries there, knowing how to use Google Translate. I guess one of the best things for us is building those long-lasting relationships. Going back and, we're still in communication with people that we've hosted in the past, and recently actually had them over for a lunch. And, it's great to catch up with them and see, how they're making out in Canada, to see that they have their own apartment, they have a job, their English is getting better. It's amazing to see that growth, and just to know that you've played a part in that is very, very rewarding. Definitely like that. One of the other things is it's also great to learn sort of the refugee process, what they need to go through it. It's not something that you need to know to host, but if you're able to, understand the process, kind of learn a little bit about it, it can go a long way in assisting your guests by knowing some of that background there. It's definitely exciting when you first, host, and those first few days they're really exciting, and they're great experiences, but it does start to wane a bit as you settle into more of a groove. And then there's also some challenges.
Yeah, I'll speak about some of the challenges that we've had over our experiences. First and foremost is it's a different culture, and trying to learn a new culture in such a short period of time.
I gotta go. I got in.
Is very difficult. So it's just learning how to be very flexible as things go. You kind of have to go on the fly with things and just not let things bother you, which is easier said than done. Another thing that we've experienced is being able to set a firm boundary on cultural differences. So for instance, like there's gender differences within Canada that's different than other countries. And I would say it's important to, I think, understand some of the boundaries that you don't want overstepped, and to know when to speak up. What we've had done in the past is we've sought help from third parties for guidance on how to address sensitive situations. Since we were kind of new to a few things, we didn't have the expertise. So it was very helpful to reach out to someone who knows how to help, and so that they can kind of address some of the situations with you. Again, the language barrier. If things aren't translated properly over Google Translate, you kind of have to go on the fly of learning how to minimize your sentences and talking in kind of more simplified manner. So that's been challenging, but we're kind of getting used to that as well. As Jake mentioned before, there is the adjustment of having someone else in your space. It is what it is. And as Andrea mentioned too, just having that time to sit down with them and set out boundaries, set out rules. And what we've done in the past is, before the guest has moved in with us, we've actually written out our list, kind of gone over it a few times, kind of walk around our house and be like, what do we want in this room? What do we want in that room? Put out our list of rules, and then send it to them beforehand. So our first meeting, we're actually talking about the rules ahead of time. So they've had time to see them. We know what they are, and that's actually been very helpful as well. Again, Andrea has already said, but different people from the same culture can act in two different ways. So you just have to kind of just be okay with unexpected things that come up. So you can plan for one experience, and you can assume that that's going to be your experience for the second one, and it can be completely different. And things that we found too, they'll frustrate you for a little bit, but we've always reminded ourselves that it's only temporary. There are some things that will need to be addressed if they're really bothering you, but at the end of the day, it's a temporary thing. The last one too that we're working through and trying to understand as well is understanding our own assumptions and expectations. It's important to understand what your assumptions are, what your expectations are. So when they aren't met, try not to get frustrated over it. One example for us is the windows. So in the winter time, we've had guests keep the windows open all day, so the heat is going full blast all day. Summertime, they've kept the windows open when the AC is on. So it's kind of the assumption of, we would assume you know to close the windows, but it's just an assumption that you can't get upset about. And it's another thing you kind of jot down on your list of rules. When things do go in a difficult direction or something that you weren't planning for, it's always just good. What we've done is kind of put yourself in the guest's shoes and try not to get worked up over the small things. If you kind of step back and take a look at the big picture of what they're going through, they're such small things that you just kind of learn to be okay with them. And as well, like, the process is a beautiful process, the ups and the downs of it. So being able to kind of slow down and being able to appreciate all of it is really important as well. So we think it was a wonderful experience. We enjoy doing it. And for all of those who are interested in doing it, I think it's a absolutely amazing opportunity.
All right. Well, thank you, Jake and Leah, Craig and Vicky and Andrea, and thank you, Waterloo Region Mobilizes, for having us here tonight. I just have 4 short comments before passing the torch back to Lisa. Things that kind of came up in the stories that I just wanted to reiterate. So the first thing, and I've seen a few questions about this, about the host role. we're really clear within Open Homes that our role is just housing and friendship. We are not here to do any kind of settlement services or certainly not mental health services on top of that. We just provide a place to stay and friendship. We don't do anything more than that. And I'm sure Waterloo Region Mobilizes would have a similar philosophy, and that frees you as a host to really be there as a host, a friend, a community member, rather than a service provider. One thing I wasn't super clear on is the rhythm of hosting. So with Open Homes, people will host for a medium amount of time, say in the past 3 to 4 months. Now it's more like 5 to 6 months, but then they'll take a break. So they'll take 2, 3, 4 months off of hosting and have the space to themselves, and then they will host again. And we found this rhythm of hosting and resting, hosting and resting, hosting and resting is what enables our hosts to then host long term. If you keep on hosting one after another, you're going to exhaust yourself. So if any of you after this experience of hosting are thinking of hosting long term, that's just something to keep in mind. And the final thing that I wanted to mention is Open Homes really grew from 2015 to 2019, 2020. And when the pandemic started, we sort of, as a network, as a community, we took a sabbatical, but now we're back. So we're still small. We don't really advertise ourselves that much. We have a few people like Jake and Leah who are now hosting, and we hope to slowly grow and to meet some of the needs of the housing needs of newly arrived refugee claimants. So thank you so much for having us here tonight, and pass the torch back to Lisa.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel like I could have heard a lot more, and I can see so many people want to just pick your brains. So we might have to do this again. Everyone, Andrea, Jake and Leah, Vicki and Craig, thank you so much for sharing. It was really helpful. I know one thing that's different, I think, Isaiah, is the Ukrainians are coming through a different pathway. And so they're not going to get connected to those settlement agencies that might be able to put them on to housing. And so we did, there was an announcement yesterday that the government was going to provide safe housing. And I don't think anybody knows what that looks like yet. So for those that are hosting Ukrainians, make sure that you do connect them with the YMCA or Reception House or Immigration Partnership Waterloo Region. Even our grassroots community also has some supports and resources in place. So I think one of the hosts talked about that circle of support. And so I think that is something our group is trying to also provide, because we realize as hosts, you're giving up a lot, and a lot of people want to support you. They might not be able to host, but they certainly want to support you. So again, thank you, Isaiah, and everyone else on the call. Isaiah will stick around at the end for a Q&A. I know there were some questions in the chat. So without further ado, so our next guest is Kate McDuff, and she is the manager of network programs and planning at the food bank, and she's going to speak to us on how that is a resource in our community. So Kate, I did give you co-hosting privileges. I think you wanted to share your screen. So go ahead, Kate.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you so much for having me this evening. I've really been looking forward to connecting with you guys and sharing a little bit about what we do here at the food bank and in Waterloo Region. So I'm just going to share some of my slides here. Give me one moment. Okay. Oh, technology. All right, so at the Food Bank of Waterloo Region, we focus on acquiring, coordinating, and distributing food to over 100 community organizations. So this can include programs like soup kitchens, shelters, and community centers in Waterloo Region. At the heart of the network is the Food Bank of Waterloo Region and the Cambridge Food Bank. So we work together to acquire food from local farms, from grocery stores, from food retailers, and from the community. And then we distribute it to our 100 different agency partners across Waterloo Region who are providing services. So people sometimes think, wow, 100 programs, that sounds like a lot. But we have that many programs because we know that folks who need food assistance come access our programs for a lot of different reasons and are in many different situations. So we have different programs available to meet some of their needs. We also take the approach as a network that we want help to be in people's neighborhoods so they don't have to get on multiple buses to get the help that they need. So there's over 31 hamper programs in the community, distributing 250 hampers every day to folks in their neighborhoods, serving 34,320 individuals every year. So we know that, some folks are they may be new to Canada, they may have recently suffered a job loss. We really take the approach that we want that vital safety net to be there for everyone if they're in need of those services. And we know that about 1 in 20 households access food assistance. So that's one person on your street, one child in your kid's classroom, maybe somebody at work who's accessing support from the community food assistance network. So we know how important it is to make the services accessible and really welcoming for anybody who needs the support. So these are some of the community programs that we support. So we support shelters and residential programs, emergency hamper programs that we'll talk about a little bit, and then food distribution programs in community centers, as well as community meal programs. So as a network, we believe that food is a basic human right. So it's all about, wanting to support that individual to make sure that they have the help that they need. So we don't ask for proof of citizenship or proof of income. We know that life circumstances can change, so we want to make sure that those services are accessible. We will ask community members some questions about them, just basic questions to help us advocate on their behalf, but they can also choose not to share that information with us if they don't feel comfortable, and they can still access services, so they can be completely anonymous. We try and make it as open and flexible as possible. And we also really believe in equity. So making sure that we're delivering, quality services to members of our community, no matter where they're coming from, if they've been in the community for a day or a long time or whatever they're facing in their lives. We want to make sure that those supports are there. In order to make those supports as accessible as possible, the food bank has started a centralized referral line. So folks can call into our line, which is right here. They can speak with an experienced social worker that can connect them to food assistance programs close to them, and also help them with any other needs. So if they have questions about what services are available, they can provide additional information and contact, and just be a friendly voice sometimes, because we all need that, especially during the pandemic. With the centralized delivery line, folks who aren't able to physically visit programs, so maybe it's because they're sick and isolating, or they have mobility issues, or they have young children and transportation barriers, or they've just gotten out of a hospital, they can request a hamper delivery. So we work with the Salvation Army Kitchener and Cambridge Food Bank to deliver fresh, frozen, non-perishable food items in Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge for families. If someone doesn't want to call in, they can always visit our website. We have a lovely program map here. And as you can see, it shows all the programs that are available in Waterloo Region. So you can click one of the little icons and it'll show the program information, when to access. It also shows some programs focus on serving neighborhoods. So they'll have neighborhood boundaries of where they're focusing their services. If someone goes, they'll give them food because we know that they're accessing for a reason, but they might just refer them to a program that's closer to them so they don't have to travel as far. But folks can put in their address on our website and see what program is closest to them. At the food bank, we really focus on providing fresh, nutritious food items. So we're providing hampers that are 3 to 4 days worth of food that include fresh, frozen, and non-perishable items. About 50% of the food items that we distribute at the food bank are fresh, because we know that that's what community members want. And that's a big part of having a healthy diet. And that's what we want the community to have access to. So this is a perishable hamper that our volunteers lovingly put together, and it'll be distributed at a community center program. We also really feel that choice is an important part of serving the community with dignity. So this is the Cambridge Food Bank, where folks can go into the hamper room and choose the items that feel good to them. So all of our programs try to provide diverse food items that meet various cultural and dietary needs. So halal food items, and we really try and work with our agency partners to identify if there's food items that are frequently requested, like, dried chickpeas or potatoes, or, we really have an open conversation to make sure that we're meeting the needs in the community. Our partners also have, fridges and freezers to be able to maintain food safety at programs. At the food bank, we have refrigerated vehicles so we can safely pick up food, safely store food, and distribute food, both fresh and frozen, to the community. We feel that food safety is another really important part of providing dignified service to the community. It's really important that we're providing quality food that people are going to feel good about receiving. We're also trying to be innovative and creative. So this is our mobile pantry truck, where it has coolers and freezers on site. So we're able to go into the community to deliver service where folks need it. So this mobile pantry is at the Stanley Park Community Center. We just opened that last year. We're also had the mobile pantry at a supportive housing location. So it's all about bringing the services where community members are and where they're needed. And we work with our community partners to identify gaps and start new programs if they're needed. So one of the major approaches that we take with new Canadians coming into the community is working with immigration services to connect them to existing services, because it's a big part of new Canadians integrating into the community. So one community that has a lot of new Canadians typically is the Paulander community. So this is the Paulander Community Center Food Distribution Program. And it's a great place where people can come and say hello to their neighbors, share recipes, and really feel that sense of the belonging in a community that can feel new to them, and really share culture, share stories, and share experiences. It's also an opportunity for individuals to access other programs. So this is the youth garden that 40 youth grew at Sunnydale Community Center. So they can get involved in youth programming, or, tutoring, or various other programs that will, help them integrate in the community and feel a sense of purpose. This is another example. This is the lovely Chai, who does nutritional and meal planning with folks. So she'll teach moms how to make hummus or other different things. Baba ganoush, I think, was one of her recipes. So just helping families, learn food skills and eat healthy foods. So this is a community board at the Centerville Chicopee Community Center, and I think it really demonstrates what we try and do in the Food Assistance Network. So we know that food is important, and it's that first step to build a relationship with the family so we can understand how we can support other parts of their life. And community centers are really hubs where people can access other services. So this is a great example. There's information about a Christmas hamper. There's information about volunteering. Folks can access a family outreach worker, which are social workers that can help families budget. We've also seen success with food distribution programs having vaccination clinics at the same time. So people feeling comfortable to connect to additional services. So it's all really about having that level of sustainability, because we know that we need that consistency in services. And often, you know, reception house workers will go with families to food assistance programs just to help them learn the ropes, help them feel comfortable in the space and make that connection. We know when families come to Canada, sometimes they're in a really good financial position and they don't need support. Sometimes they do, which is great. So they know where they can receive that support. But if you're connecting families to existing services, they can access service in that moment, or maybe 1 year, 2 years down the road, when they need that help, and it'll be there for them at that time. We also support community meal programs, so that's something that someone can access as well. They're available for breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week in Kitchener and Cambridge. They're also on that program map, so you can get a sense of where they are. These are the wonderful volunteers at the Trinity Community Church. So they're preparing lunch for the Cambridge community in a public health inspected kitchen. So all community meal programs that are distributing food to community members need to be prepared from a public health inspected kitchen. Again, it's all around that food safety piece and providing dignity and quality service to the community. So as I mentioned before, there's not one reason or one story about people accessing food assistance services. We make welcoming spaces to welcome everyone from every walk of life. So, and those services are there if someone needs to access it just once a year, once a month, or maybe even once a week. So we see that 54% of households are accessing 1 to 3 times a year. So maybe they've had, you know, a big medical bill or a car repair and they need that help once a year. Others are in tougher spots where they might need to go to a hamper program once a week, and that's okay. All the community center programs offer hampers once a week for families. So it's really about helping them where they're at. We help single individuals, but we also welcome families. We welcome seniors. We welcome people of all ages. We serve those who are renting, but we also serve homeowners. We welcome people who are employed and maybe need a little bit of help or are recently on employment insurance, as well as people who are on ODSP or OW. So we really try and build on the equity piece so everyone can access the help that they need. So there's lots of ways to support, you know, new Canadians joining the community. You can support the food bank or our partners by donating food, funds, or time. Food bank can be donated through a food drive or at your local grocery store. You know, there's also opportunities to do culturally specific food drives, so we can share those items with our partners across Waterloo Region. So if a family is in Waterloo, Kitchener, or Cambridge, they're going to have access to those food items. There's also an opportunity to donate funds. So we are a registered charity and can provide tax receipts. We've also been accredited by Imagine Canada. And the funds allow us to make donations go that much further. So $1 is 3 meals. So we can purchase, you know, fresh and frozen product that the community members really want, or get discounted prices on, you know, perhaps specific items that families are looking for to support programs. And also, almost most importantly, is it's wonderful to have volunteers support us. Our volunteers at the food bank provide 10 full-time equivalencies. So we couldn't do what we do without volunteers. Right now, we're having a sorting blitz, so we'd love if people could support us. And then there's also the possibility of accessing the Volunteer Action Center to help some of our agency programs and connect with the community. It's really about, again, you know, creating that consistent service for newcomers to Canada, for everyone. And I think also as a group, there's what we try to do as a network. And I think there's a possibility to advocate on behalf of folks who face insecurity or creating better support systems for new Canadians. Because really it's about creating those sustainable, safe spaces where people can access the help they need, like this young woman, and really providing that support for folks who need help in our community. So I just want to thank you again for giving me some time to share some of our work. It's a wonderful system we have in Waterloo Region for folks, and I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has, or we can leave them to the end if that would be better.
Thank you, Kate. Yeah, if we can leave them to the end, that would be great. Thank you so much. I didn't realize how diverse you were, the food bank is. And when you talked about specific food needs, we are hearing that Ukrainians do have kind of a staple diet that, you know, I'm hearing beets and sour cream. There was a list that was going through. So anyway, just thank you so much, Kate. And some people were asking for the information, so we will get that sent out to everybody that was on the call. So thank you. And next up, we have Frank Glansnick. He is a volunteer. He is a volunteer with the Waterloo Region Grassroots community, and he's got his hand kind of, he came in housing and he's spread far and wide in partnerships and resource. So Frank is going to talk to us about, I believe, the YMCA. And I think, Frank, you want me to share a slide. Is that still correct?
I do in a couple minutes, if that's okay, Lisa.
Perfect. Just let me know when.
So hi, I'm Frank, and I'm also a volunteer. So my current position is working in the partnerships group. Sorry, I have to fix my tablet here so you can see my face. And I'm really working to understand what community agencies and organizations are out there that we can work with. There's a number of great agencies and organizations that are doing wonderful things, just like the food bank and the Region of Waterloo Immigration Services that we've both heard from tonight. And it's all about trying to connect the dots and figure out who does what and where to go for what help, that then we can supplement as an organization and fill in the gaps from grassroots. Our biggest challenge is change. We're dealing with multiple levels of governments and organizations, federal, provincial, regional, the agency levels. When Wendy and I got involved with Grassroots 3 weeks ago, there weren't many involved. The good news is there's lots of them involved now. We're still trying to figure it all out, and they're still trying to tell us what they're going to do. So it's an evolving situation, but it's getting better, and that's the good news. In addition to the food bank, we're talking to the YMCA, their settlement services. They're going to be a key partner. They've helped newcomers, immigrants, refugees from all parts of the world come into this region. They've done it before, they can do it again with us. Folks like the Salvation Army, the Canadian Multicultural Society, Reception House. And what I'm learning is all these groups, they're interconnected, they work together. We're still trying to figure out all those connection points and who does what and where to go. And honestly, where you are in the region, there's going to be a different answer. So as you get closer, the guest hosts, as you get closer to hosting a family, we're going to send, our goal is to send information to our resource team so that they can help you with more specifics down the line. So some community centers offer food support. Some also offer counseling service. Some also offer recreational services. Some just offer one thing. So it's really going to depend on where you are. So obviously the convenience factor of being close for a newcomer, since they probably won't have a driver's license, will make it easier for them, but they can also go to an agency across town if that's where they want to go and they feel more comfortable. So as I said, our goal, and maybe this is a good time for the slide from the YMCA, is to give our resource team information like this off of the YMC's website, Settlement Services. And it's basically, this is YMC Settlement Services. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is how to contact us. And this is how we can help. And try to share that kind of information amongst all these agency partners. So to make your lives easier as hosts, as well as the lives of the newcomers easier, so they can get on their feet and become productive Canadians. One of the big things I keep hearing from everyone that we're dealing with that's dealt with newcomers in the past, how important it is for the newcomers to become independent and get to learn what it's like to live in Canada. And that's where these community centers really come into play, where they can start to intermingle with other people in Canada, intermingle with other Ukrainians, get to know life in Canada and become independent, contributing Canadians, hopefully in the future. I think that's everything I had to say because you only gave me 5 minutes.
That was awesome, Frank. Wow. I haven't really, getting that update on partnerships and all the agencies you're partnering with. It's incredible. The community is just rallying and working alongside our settlement partners and our community members. And it's just been wonderful. We've needed this type of coming together community. So thank you, Frank. I'm not sure if Anna is on the call. I don't think she is. So Anna's from our resource team. So we're just going to skip ahead actually to Gotham. Gotham, are you ready to present?
Yes.
Thank you,
Hello.
Gotham. You know what? You're amazing. Every time we ask you to come and speak, you're always ready and willing. So thank you so much, Gotham, and please go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. I have my neighbors doing their basement out there, so you might hear some construction noises out there. Apologies for that. So for all the Canadian families, kudos to what all you're doing out here. My name is Gautam Kaluri, and I am a regulated Canadian immigration consultant, and I'm also an international education consultant. I started my life here in Kitchener-Waterloo as an international student, as an adult international student. I'm 47 and I moved here when I was 39. And I studied in Conestoga College, then I graduated and I worked as the International Students Recruitment Officer for Eastern Europe in Conestoga College. And after that, I worked in Mohawk College as the International Students Recruitment Officer. And I moved to Canada from Ukraine. I was an international student in Ukraine from the 90s. I lived there for 20 years. I speak Russian, Ukrainian, and I'm married to a Ukrainian, and I have 3 gorgeous kids. 2 of them were born in Ukraine and 1 in Canada, right? And I've been, for the last 2 weeks, I have been helping all the Ukrainians with pro bono with all the visa process, what is happening. So I will give you an update on the visa process, the application process. Second, since I lived there for so many years, I'll give you a bit of insight into the Ukrainian families, what to expect, what different types of families coming here. So the second as well. And, I came here, I remember the first day when I came here, December 9, 2013, I came here with 2 kids, my wife, Ukrainian, and my daughter, she was 2 years, my son was 9 years. I had 6 suitcases, I had 6 bags, and I had no clue. Before that, I was in Kitchener-Waterloo just once. So, that's how I came in here. And I had no clue because I came as an international student. I had no clue about YMCA. I had no clue about the support services out here. And that's how I started. Luckily, I found, through somebody put my message in Kijiji that there was, I contacted a short term and they connected me with a short term rental company. And I lived in Drello, one of the Drello buildings near Fairview Mall on King Street, I think, yeah. So I lived there for about 1 month and then I was able to find a housing apartment and then moved in, right? And just a short, when we came in, it was not easy. I was an international student. I came in, things were, I wanted a good life for my kids. And we had a point, I should say, thanks to Kate McDuff. There was one difficult week where we actually went to the food bank to get food. Thank you. And there was also one Christmas where we got a coupon from Salvation Army and my kids got so many toys, thanks to the Salvation Army as well. And it's my turn giving back. Last year, I've donated about $150,000 in scholarships to York University and many other students who are coming here. And this year for the Ukrainians, we are contemplating to support about $50,000 from my personal sources, what we are doing here. So, and again, as a part of what I'm doing, we are happy to help here. And for all like what has been said here and what I've been listening, it is really, truly heartwarming to see so many Canadian families helping Ukrainians, helping people you've never been in touch with, different cultures. And, it is really, such big support for Ukrainians. I talk to Ukrainians every day. So every day, my day starts with 9 a.m., 10 a.m. And I'm doing live sessions with Ukrainians, helping them with the visa process. I have offices in Ukraine and we have my team in Ukraine and we are helping with the visa process. right? So for them, when I tell them that there are many Canadian families willing to welcome them here and help them without any pro bono, with free housing, helping them settle here. I've seen people literally cry there. Like, this is so, this is, for them, this is such a big help. So, so getting to the process, right? As many host families, you're all ready to help, but again, where are all the Ukrainian families coming in? So there's a big process behind this, right? So what's happening is the government of Canada has come up with a 3-year open work permit. It's not a refugee program. Unfortunately, it's been a temporary program. It's in process. Maybe the government will open the refugee program later, but it is a temporary work visa. So Ukrainians can come here to work and live in Canada for 3 years. And if they want to live here, they can apply for permanent residence to the normal programs as of now. And if they feel, and once the war is over, if they feel they want to go back home, they would probably go back home. So the process now is the Ukrainians who want to come to Canada, they have to submit an online visa application for a program which is called Canada Ukraine Authorization for Emergency Travel. So once they submit this application, they receive, the next step is they have to give biometrics, and a photograph has to be taken. So the biometrics is basically, fingerprints and a photograph. Unfortunately, because it is not safe in Ukraine, the Canada biometric centers are located in Europe. So families who want to go there, they have to go to Europe to give this biometric. So many families are already displaced living in Europe, but there are limited centers out there. Poland has taken the largest number of refugees. Official statements, it's 1 million. Unofficial statements is like 2 million. So the visa center in Warsaw is so overwhelmed that they are not really ready to get this much of huge volume, right? So currently there are a lot of delays with the biometrics. Initially, the Ukrainians are unable to book the biometrics because there's no availability for the next month, right? So that is the situation. So first, they cannot book the biometrics. So people who were lucky to book the biometrics and finish the biometrics, the next step is they have to wait for a week to get, up to 1 week to get a decision from Immigration Canada if the visa application has been approved. So once they receive this letter, then they have to again submit the passport by courier service to the VFS center to get the passport stamped with the visa sticker. So that is again being a nightmare. And yesterday we posted one of the pictures sent from Warsaw. They're Ukrainians who are sleeping out there waiting for 1 or 2 days in line. There are over 500 people waiting every day just to get it, while the capacity is just about 200. So there's more delays. So unfortunately, because of that, especially in Poland, which is, the major country which is giving a safe haven to the Ukrainians, it's all over flooded. The government of Canada is aware of the situation. They are bringing in more resources. Hopefully in the next 2 to 4 weeks, it will change. So unfortunately, situation here is Ukrainians who were able to start early, they were able to get the visas, but still we are looking at a backlog of about at least 3 to 4 weeks for them to come in. Some are coming in small numbers, but again, big volume, obviously not yet. So that's one to the visa process. So kindly, keep your hearts warm to welcome the Ukrainians. They will be here, but it might take some time, 3 to 4 weeks. Okay, that's one. Second, talking about the people coming in here. Okay, so Ukraine situation, some part of it, yes, it is like Syria and Afghanistan, but again, there's no government support and no government lifting people and bringing them here. So it's all like people buying their flights, who can afford, who already have the visas. So that's, it's a slow process, right? Second, getting back to the different, Ukrainians who are coming in. Some of them, like the probably most of the people who are coming in, they're educated. They speak English, intermediate to good English. You'd probably see a good number of those people, and they have the financials as well to support themselves, right? So what as host families, what you're doing is a very great opportunity and very great support to them, because I remember when I came here, so when you're welcoming the people and giving them a heartwarming, a place to stay, and a very friendly support during the first 2 weeks, this will define their future in Canada. If they start their life in Canada on a positive note, you will set a note that they will be successful here in Canada, and they'll be happy to have the positive energy going up with them, right? So the first part, people who have the funds, who have, and it is so, and why is it your help so important? Because getting a rental in Canada, right, you understand how it is. We need to have a credit score, employment, and everything. So even though these people can afford, it's very difficult find them to have a temporary accommodation for 2 or 3 months until they get a job, until they move into permanent housing. So your help is very, very crucial here, very critical, welcoming to their homes. That's very important, right? So the first, people who can afford. Second, they might be, Ukrainians who do not speak English and do not have the finances. And, that might be a bit of a struggle, but again, your help again is very important out here. Your patience, very important here to understand that Ukrainians are a different culture. They are much different from Syrians and Afghanistan out there culturally. And one thing I can definitely tell you is that Ukrainians are very hardworking. The first thing they would be asking you is work. They will not go for the settlement services. They will not ask for the money. The first thing they will ask you, please get me a job. Right? That's something which we are working here, and to support with Lisa, what we've been discussing the last 2 weeks is circle of support or buddies, Ukrainian buddies. So we are working here in Waterloo community. We appreciate your support, and we want to ensure that many of you who are hosting the first time, you're not let alone. Even though there are support service, settlement services, YMCA and other services, Ukrainian volunteers in here, Waterloo and Kitchener, are also ready to support you. So our plan with Waterloo Grassroots is to ensure that we have a Ukrainian volunteer, a Ukrainian and Russian speaking volunteer, who will be a bridge between the host family and the Ukrainians family. So anytime you have any issues, you can connect with this buddy and a Ukrainian volunteer who can help you, and also help the Ukrainian families. Since most of the families, you're already letting the Ukrainians stay with you, right? We want to have support of the other people. Just, I think one of our colleagues, one of our friends just mentioned about taking them to groceries, helping them with the SIN number or any other stuff. It becomes overwhelming when everything is on you. So we want to support you. We want to ensure that you have your space. Sometimes when when it gets overwhelming, we are there. The Ukrainian volunteers are there to support you. Okay. So, well, I guess that's what we are here, volunteers, and I'm happy to be a part of the Waterloo Grassroots team. My friend Michael introduced me to Lisa, and since then I'm here as much as I can to support. Again, thank you very much to our warm Waterloo community out here, guys. You guys are great, and literally, as I said, I'm talking to so many people out there, and I feel so proud that I'm here in this community who's taken the lead, and I can proudly tell them that there are Canadians here who are willing to welcome and support you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gotham. And I know you've been really working hard to mobilize your team of Ukrainian and Russian speaking volunteers, like he said, to be that connection. So if you become a host, whether it's through, Grassroots, or it's another hosting platform, or if you know somebody that's hosting, please send them our way. Just visit our website, and we want to support you, and we'll walk through this with you, because like we said before, offering your home is a wonderful, amazing thing, and a great sacrifice, and we want to support you through that. Thank you again, Gotham. I know you're working from morning till night for a long time. So next, I want to introduce through the grassroots team, when we started, there was only a few of us, and we were looking at what gaps could we possibly help the settlement partners with. And over the few weeks, I think Stephanie Gertz, if you're on this call, Steph, pop your head in. She's been an amazing leader and a guide, and she's our media person as well. You might see Steph out there. Anyway, it's changed and grown so much. And so what we have now is the resource team. We definitely need a resource team. And so this next person, I'm going to call upon Anna to speak. And so she is forming, it's a newly formed team within Waterloo Grassroots. So Anna, please welcome. Thank you for coming. I know you're coming from another meeting. So thank you for coming, and go ahead, Anna.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you everyone here that you're willing to open your homes to families. There's a huge need. We all know that. We're watching the news from Europe, from Ukraine. It's all heartbreaking. So I will briefly explain how I came to attempt to monitor and manage resources. I have been joining online meetings. Then I thought, okay, I cannot figure out the structure. I should go in person because I, for my work, I do better job in person usually. And that didn't solve my issue of not knowing where to run and what to do. So, and then Stephanie suggested that someone should really try to organize the resources. So this is where I am. I'm absolutely not protective over that. If you want to take over, help out in any capacity, you're very, very welcome. We do need people who like to organize things, who are not scared of tech things. We use Excel spreadsheets. We use Monday software, which is very similar to spreadsheets, and we're just trying to organize overwhelming amount of help that people are offering and match it with the needs that we're starting to get requests for. Now, in terms of the requests we're getting, their numbers are still small, but based on what Gotham has shared, there will be a huge influx in about 3-4 weeks and I tend to trust your judgment, Gotham, in terms of the immigration process. So I expect by mid-May, we will all of a sudden grow from 10 families to 40, and then we might even grow to 400 in another month, because this is how immigration tends to work. And I've also happened to attend one of Gotham's meetings in immigration because I had a specific question. And Gotham, you're incredibly kind, but also you're advertising us a lot. So if there is a family that says they have no connections, you send them to us, which is awesome. And also, I think we need to be ready. So in order for us to be ready, we need to, Lisa, can you allow me to share screen? Because I think you are a host. It says host disabled participant screen sharing. I don't have to share it, but I figured I might try to. So we tried to create a structure, and I think it might be helpful.
You should be able to share now, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I think, okay, give me 1 second, sorry about this. I think in order for us to be able to assist hosts as well as to keep track of what we have, we really need to put the structure into a better place, right? So bear with me. I'm just gonna share screen and sorry, I know it's a long night. Slideshow. Okay, you're able to see anything? Okay, so maybe this will just help you a little bit to understand that we have this resource structure that is being developed. The resources are meant to connect what we know about what's available in the community through the partners that we connect with, through donations that have been offered, through some events that are being organized. So we collect all this information in theory for now, and what we do, we just don't collect it in a very organized way yet. And then we tailor it to specific requests that the Ukrainian family that you're hosting or you as a host yourself can request. So if you need a basketball, then you just put that request and we sort through all the things that we know and you get it hopefully within the week. That's the idea. How we operate, this is yet to be, solved and resolved. But the idea is that we have a pool of donations, and there are a huge amount of things that are being offered and that are being donated. There are also partners who are willing to buy food, who are willing to buy toys, the churches, they're willing to sponsor and organize foods and other resources. And there are also many people who are hoping to organize some community events and connect people with each other. So this is a hope. We are trying to get more organized. It's a little messy, but on a positive side, there is a resource request form that we made, and it is pretty simple. This is the process that you don't need to worry about, but it is, I don't know, Lisa, do we have a minute for me to show the form just so people know what to expect, or is it too overwhelming?
Sorry, Anna. Actually, I'm wondering if we can add it. There were a lot of questions and things we want to follow up. We'll definitely include that.
There will be a form where you essentially request what you need or what your family needs, and it's a drop-down menu that allows you to specify whether it's related to translations, to a volunteer from Gotham's team who can be a buddy and help out with specific things, and you don't need to specify what things. That's what the buddy is for, as well as donations. We assume in the beginning the donations are small items, but as families start moving out of hosts' homes and start to build their own life on their own with their apartments, then bigger items become more relevant. So we are keeping a tab on what people are offering. We're not storing it yet in terms of, couches and fridges and stoves and all that, but this is also an option. And there will be a document developed soon that can specify what can be requested, not just a form, but also an opportunity to know what's on the list. So I hope we will be helpful. This would be my big hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. And honestly, kudos, like you just started this week and you just had a meeting tonight. So I think you've come a long way, and I know there's a lot of people that want to help you. So best of luck, and thank you again for coming tonight. So last, I'm going to ask Wendy if you can just introduce the next piece, the next video, if you can just, introduce it.
One moment. There we go. Okay, so I had the opportunity to talk to Mallory, who's one of our volunteers, but she is also our first host as well. So she has been helping a family who was here. They were working on a farm near Elmira, went home to visit family in the Ukraine, and the husband, the war broke out, the husband had to stay, and now the mother and two children are back on the farm. So she's had exposure to that family. That's kind of started her journey, but they are also expecting and in conversation with another family that's going to come and join them. So she's kind of our beta person talking to us about what she's experiencing. And I hear there's other people on this call that also can share some of these things. Mallory couldn't be with us tonight, so she's done a video that she's just going to share her experiences to date. Back to you, Lisa.
A few weeks ago, we were matched via the Housing Committee with Waterloo Region Grassroots Response to the Ukrainian Crisis. We were connected with a single mother who is interested in moving to Canada with her young son. They were actually able to leave Ukraine, so they are safe and in a different country, waiting in a shelter for their visa to be approved. And we're hoping that they can come here in the next week or so. I thought I would share some tips and considerations based on our experience to maybe help ease your decision-making process or help you consider some things that maybe you hadn't thought of. So the first thing I would recommend is having a really in-depth conversation with the people around you with regards to how they can support the Ukrainians. It's one thing to have an extra room in your house. It's a whole other ballgame to have people living with you, and they're going to need a great deal of support. I would recommend maybe preparing for this process like you would a job interview. So prepare your list of questions. The first list of questions I would recommend is just a list of things to talk about and to think about with the people who are going to be providing support when the Ukrainians are here. So whether that's friends, family, neighbors, teachers, things like that. You know, it's really important to understand who will be able to help and how they will be able to help, so you can make sure that you're fully prepared for them to come here. Next, I would recommend preparing a list of questions for the Ukrainian people. So it's important for you to know things like what size clothing they're going to need when they move in, what types of clothing they're going to need when they move in. A lot of them are coming right now with, you know, winter clothes, and they might be coming here in winter boots. And as the weather gets nicer and spring, you know, turns into summer, they're not going to be wanting to wear winter coats and winter boots and heavy sweaters and things like that. It's also important to ask about their personal hygiene needs. So, you know, without getting too in depth, it's important to ask some pointed questions. So this could be anything from, do you need toothpaste? Or do you need feminine hygiene products like tampons and pads? Another important thing for many people is understanding the vaccination status of both parties involved. So for my family, it was important for us to know if the Ukrainians who are coming to stay with us are vaccinated. And we actually learned that there's no children's vaccine in Ukraine for COVID-19. So we asked if they were planning to, if the mother was planning to have her son vaccinated when he arrived here, and she said yes. So that kind of fit in line with our household, our fully vaccinated household. If you're not vaccinated, it might be important to just ask if they're comfortable with that. It could be a deal breaker, or it might not matter, but right now, given the climate of the world and COVID-19, we found that it is important to disclose our vaccination status to anybody potentially living here, and to understand you know, their intentions as well. Another consideration is I've only been trying to ask 1 or 2 questions a day. So it's important to recognize that they have a lot of very serious things still going on in their lives. For the family who's coming to live with us, they still have immediate family members in Ukraine who chose not to leave, in areas where there is active fighting, and they're living in a shelter. They're trying to figure out how to get by. They're living with a bunch of other people who have fled Ukraine. And so while answering questions about clothing and personal hygiene and things like that is important for us so that we can be well prepared when they arrive, it might not be the highest priority item for them. So that's why I've been trying to stick to 1 or 2 questions a day, and just really trying to sense if they're, you know, responsive or in the mood to chat, or if they have other things going on that are kind of taking priority at that moment. So I would just recommend trying to be sensitive to what they have going on, and trying to understand that what we're doing here in Canada is really important. And we want to set them up for success when they get here, but some of the questions might have to wait if they have a lot of other stressful, important things going on. You know, especially as you're trying to obtain travel permits and visas, and you know, renew passports, or making appointments to get their biometrics done, and figuring out how they're going to get from Prague to Vienna in order to do that, and things like that. So just keep all of those things in the back of your mind. Next, I would just recommend that you really sit down and think about what they'll actually need when they get here. So we think on a surface level, yeah, everybody needs a toothbrush and toothpaste. Everybody needs shampoo and soap and things like that. But my experience so far is that it's actually been really difficult. It can be really difficult for Ukrainians to ask for help. And that's why, you know, we're trying to ask really pointed questions. Things like, will you be looking for a job when you get here? There's actually a box that they check on their visa application. They have to check that if they want to be working when they come here. Another great thing is we've been talking so much about mental health support for the Ukrainians as part of Waterloo Region Grassroots Response to the Ukrainian Crisis. And mental health is a really important thing. So you can ask them if you feel comfortable, you know, if we can find some counseling services for you, is that something you'd like to take advantage of? Another good example is for expectant mothers or new mothers. You know, they have a lot of needs that are very different from others. So it might be, you know, I would probably advise you ask if they need anything for their prepartum or postpartum care, or sorry, their pregnancies or their postpartum care. And this could be anything from a pregnancy pillow that they want to sleep with at nighttime to a breast pump or nursing bras or things like that. So, you know, these are things that they'll need that they might feel shy to ask for. So it can, you know, maybe be framed as, do you need anything for your pregnancy? Are you taking pregnancy vitamins? Or is that something that you're going to need? And I would also recommend asking a couple times in different ways and framing the question differently, because based on my experience, again, they're not always very directly saying, oh, I need this, 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 and this. It can often be like, no, it's okay, I don't need anything. And then you ask again, they'll be like, okay, well, I do need this. And then you ask, oh, do you need this? And they're like, yeah, I need that. Okay, what else do you need? Like, it's just kind of constantly but gently, I guess, poking them to try to get them to warm up a little bit and to share what their actual needs are with you. It can be kind of embarrassing for some people to ask for things like tampons. So, you know, you could say, do you need any feminine hygiene products? Or is there anything at the pharmacy that you might need, medication or things like that to help you out? So it's not always a very comfortable conversation, but it might be something that they do need. So I would just recommend, if they aren't responsive, then don't poke them too much. You know, we'll just try to be respectful of that. And some of these things we'll just have to figure out when they get here. So that's okay too. I would also recommend not making assumptions. Early on in the process for our family, we made the assumption that, okay, well, this young child is coming to live with us, we'll register him for school. And, you know, I sent a link to the school to the mother and talked about my neighbor who's a teacher at the school and things like that. And then realized a few days later that the mother and the parents may not actually want to register their child for school right away. There's a huge hurdle to overcome with the language barrier. Their whole lives have been uprooted. So at this point, as I'm recording this video in April, it may make sense to kind of hold them back until the summer is over and enroll them in the fall. But I would recommend just don't make that assumption. Don't make any assumptions. I think it's always going to be very important that the Ukrainians feel a sense of control over their decisions, and it's really important that those stay with them. So even though they're living with us, it doesn't really give us license to make assumptions and make decisions for them. So it's important to keep that in mind. Even though you might be providing them with just a spare room, or maybe you have an apartment or a home that's available rent-free, there will ultimately be responsibility for you as the host. So an example is there's actually a Ukrainian woman already living here nearby where I live in Elmira. And her son fell last week and he injured his mouth and his teeth. He needed to see a dentist. So you have to consider things like who's going to find the dentist, who's going to drive them to the appointment, who's going to pay for the bill. Are you prepared to help negotiate fees? Is there a language barrier? Do you need a translator? It's not as simple as just providing a space for them to live. There's a little bit more involved with that, and I think it's important to know and consider these things before you make your decision to host a Ukrainian family. It's very important to help the Ukrainians become self-sufficient. So like I was just saying, we know that they're going to need a lot of help up front at the beginning. But as time goes on, you know, they're going to have to learn how to do things for themselves. We can help them open bank accounts, register for school, figuring out the transit system, how to access the food bank. But it's important that slowly and surely we're teaching them how to become more independent. So realistically, we as hosts can't drive our new Ukrainian friends around everywhere they need to go for the rest of their lives. We will need to teach them how to do things for themselves, and making sure, you know, there's an old saying, if you give a person a fish, you feed them for a day. If you teach them how to fish, then you teach them, or you feed them for a lifetime. So I think that same philosophy applies here. It's going to be all very, very overwhelming, and it's not something that's going to happen overnight, but eventually they do need to learn how to become a bit more self-sufficient. And, you know, that might mean taking them to the Grand River Transit website, showing them how to navigate the bus schedules, showing them where the stop is, taking them on a couple of trips, you know, joining them on a couple of trips to show them how it works, show them how they buy passes, show them how they connect their bus route to the ION route, and so on. So considering opening your home to someone is a wonderfully gracious thing to do, and hopefully these tips are providing a bit of food for thought for you and will help make your decision to host Ukrainians in your home a little bit easier.
That was great. Mallory is one of our volunteers, and you know, right from the beginning was matched up with somebody before we had to put the brakes on. So with the housing matching process. So anyway, that is it for our speakers. So now we did want to open up the floor to any questions. I would ask that you either put the question in the chat, or you can raise your hand, and I'll do my best to facilitate this piece. I am being told that somebody is working on a draft list of tips and tricks for having initial conversations. So that will be coming. And again, if you're at all, if you're getting emails from our group or from myself, we'll definitely share that. So let's go to some questions. I'm looking for any hands up or questions in the chat. Does anyone know about the driver's license? Can Ukrainians get one here? What are the rules? Gotham, is that something you know about?
So, you know, unfortunately, they have to go through the process. So if they have driving experience from home, they can skip the G1 and get to the G2. But again, if they have to get the license. They cannot directly exchange, you know, the Ukrainian driving license with the Canadian one.
Okay, thank you, Gotham. Yeah. Okay, and then Heidi asks, are there people who can help with job searches? I know that the YMCA, you'll want to get connected with them. They will help. There is a job, I believe a job search website, Gotham, as well. Do you know of anybody else working actively with regard to job opportunities?
Frank has a.
Frank?
That's part of the partnership, so it's not the part that I'm involved in, but we do have someone that's looking at employment. We've got a number of employers locally that are very pro-Ukrainian, that are looking to support the new Ukrainians that are coming in, as well as other job opportunities, no matter how they come up, whether someone knows of a job, you drive by a company that's got a help wanted ad, you see it on one of the websites, etc. But we are definitely working on that.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
And just to add on what Frank just mentioned, I was on call today with Mike, and so Igor and myself will also be organizing this information. You know, we'll be working on the employment opportunities, and as we discussed with you know, in the email, Nadia also advised that we come up with a resource sheet and have all the jobs posted out there for the Ukrainian families to check in and see if any of them matches it.
Awesome, awesome, thank you. Okay, Peter and Deborah Marson, you have some questions. Do you want to go ahead?
Can we choose the time period?
Yeah.
Is it on?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay. Can we choose the time period of how long they stay?
Absolutely. I mean, on our housing form, we did have options of if you wanted to host, 3 months, 4 to 6 months, or it didn't matter. We did hear from Isaiah that their organization, I think 4 to 6 months, Isaiah said, and then there's taking a break. So I would think that anywhere you go to offer your home, there would be that question, how long are you offering it for?
Is there any type of financial support for us, or do we just do it all ourselves?
That's a really good question. The Waterloo Region Grassroots is looking at that circle of support so that you don't have to do it all yourself. For example, food and other resources. I'm not sure about monetary supports. I did see the announcement yesterday from the Ontario government that actually I might have that. If you don't mind, just 1 sec, I'm gonna just share that. Share my screen. So financial support, and I guess maybe I'm reading that wrong. It says financial support of up to $28,000 through our province's second career program for those who apply and are eligible for basic living allowances, tuition, transportation. So that might be, once they've settled and picked a direction. So I can't really, I can take that question back. I really don't know the answer right now, unless Frank or Gotham or somebody else on the call knows.
Yeah,
go ahead,
One of the things.
Yeah, it is Heidi's question, right, regarding the 18-year-old child.
This is Peter and Deborah are asking if there's financial support for host families.
No, sorry, please, Frank, please go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I don't know of any specific government financial support for a host family, but I do believe if you accept money for people living in your house, it's going to be like an Airbnb. And there could be insurance implications that you'd have to check into.
Now, one of the things that that I was thinking about is when you sit down and have your meals. Of course, my wife prepares it for the family. It would be pretty hard not to prepare it for the for the host family that we got. So how would you do that? Because I understand that there's also food banks. There's other ways that they get the food, but it's I'm not clear how that would work.
Sorry, so you're asking if you're making dinner, are you making it for the family as well?
Well, yeah, I would assume that if you're making dinner, you're not going to exclude them because they're in the house.
Well, and I understand that, and I think what I'm hearing, and Isaiah, you might want to step in too. I think those are things that you're going to write down and really discuss right from the beginning. We did hear from some host families saying that, they said to their guests, this is when we cook dinner, and so maybe then this is the time you cook dinner. But Isaiah, are you able to speak to that dinner piece?
Yeah, so different hosts did it in different ways. So when I hosted, the community I was living with would often have meals, and our guests would join us for those meals. But they would also often have their own food in their own section of the refrigerator, that kind of thing. From the food bank, or when they got a job, they would buy food, that kind of thing. I know a lot of families who host will sometimes have their own family time and give the kitchen and dining room to the guest later or earlier in the evening, and that partially depends on cultural eating time. So there's a whole variety. It really just matters on what you feel comfortable with as a host and what they feel comfortable as a guest. Now, that being said, I do think that there are at least a few shared meals that are good to do just as a welcoming kind of thing, but it doesn't need to be all the time.
Now, I would suppose too that you vet the families before you let them host. because of the vulnerabilities that are involved? Because I'm assuming there'll be a lot of young mothers with children will be probably some of the main people that are coming over.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we are not sure at this point how it is going to be vetted. That's why Gotham's team is so important. So if there are Ukrainians looking for houses and we become aware of it, we're sending them to Gotham and his team so that they can help them with the matching process. Because right now, Peter and Deborah, there is no vetting process. We are not associated with a third party. It is basically, buyer beware. It's landlord and tenant. So we are hoping. We heard from the Ontario government. I heard him, Premier Ford, say that we're going to bring them here. We're going to supply emergency housing, even if we have to put them up in hotels. And so while that might sound good, it's how is that going to be done? Because our how are we going to reach these people? Our settlement agencies, are you going to give them more staff, more resources to be able to vet? Like, you can say it, but it hasn't happened. Nothing's in process. And I have been talking to some people who said we have those same questions. So that's why we're a little bit on hold, because we're trying to figure out that vetting process as well. So stay tuned. That's all I can say. Okay. Gotham, you wanted to speak to somebody's question earlier. Did you want to do that?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so here she has a question. So the boy who's staying with Hades' family will be turning 18 and he's no longer eligible to school. So he probably will have to go to, if it is a college, then have to reach to Conestoga College. And the government, yesterday, Premier Ford did announce that Ukrainians who would be over 18 and interested to attend the colleges, they have a 1.9, they have allocated $1.9 million in scholarships, so they have to apply. So we don't really have a process on that. But again, this is, I do work closely with Conestoga College, and if you can reach out to me, Eddie, I will send you an email and we can coordinate with the college and we can check in what would be the admission process and what is required, and also from the financial side, if there is, how to apply for the scholarship and what we can do that. Okay.
Thank you, Gotham. Wendy, did you have a question?
Oh, no, I just wanted to comment on a couple of the things I saw in chat. So from the grassroots side, we've drafted, here's all the questions that we think you'd want to know about the newcomer. Here's all the questions I think the newcomer wants to know about you as a host, so that you can vet each other, and we wouldn't be the ones who would match you. You would have that conversation. And there's all sorts of websites and Airbnb disaster and various things that are doing that. We since we're not a formal organization, we can't do police checks, which I saw a couple of questions about that. We've been talking to the region. Everyone knows there will be some kind of organization, whether that's federal, provincial, or regional, that will lead up housing. And for all of those reasons, they want to make sure that it's safe for both the newcomer and the host family. So everybody's talking about it. They just don't know where that's going to reside. But know that absolutely, they're going to make sure that you're a safe place for the families to go, especially because they're so vulnerable. But also, we can't be the ones that do that. We can only facilitate. But if we can pare it down to whatever organization ends up with that responsibility, if we can come and say, here are 3 hosts that actually are really close to meeting the criteria because we've asked enough questions, we can make their job a lot easier and give them more scale, because to Lisa's point, the resources are going to be really stretched. So we will just be the bridge as much as we can to put the right people forward. But rest assured, at some point, there will be someone making the right decisions and doing that vetting process.
Awesome. Thank you, Wendy. I saw some comments about insurance. And so if you have anything like that, I just suggest that you reach out on your own and get that information from your insurance company. I think if you're hosting your home, unless Isaiah, you know anything about if insurance, somebody did say they had a small increase. Do you have any insight on having to get insurance?
Yeah, I think all of our hosts did that independently. We never covered it in our training because most people just went to their insurance provider and figured that out for themselves. Like, it wasn't a big hurdle.
Awesome. There were some comments about Airbnb, and that there is I can't think of, it's Airbnb. It's their charity arm, and we are looking into information. Brenda, you're on the call. Can you give a quick, just a quick synopsis of the, and
Sure.
tell us what the website is?
Yeah, so there's a new arm of Airbnb, and it's airbnb.org. And they have set up, and it's been ongoing, it's just not with the Ukrainian refugees, where they're offering, they're working with nonprofit partners to match people and provide accommodations. So people are able to put your house on airbnb.org and offer it to people coming from, refugees coming from other countries. And with that, it gives you insurance, so liability insurance and damage insurance. It also allows you to determine whether you want to provide accommodations to someone that is placing it. And like I said, Airbnb is working with a third-party nonprofit group like the International Red Cross, and it's actually the International Red Cross that would do the booking of the of your home with the individual. So we're looking at whether that's something we should be doing and become a part of, which allows people to have the insurance, and also another way of, vetting people and so we're trying to understand, what does Airbnb do? How are they vetting the host, and how are they vetting the people coming from the Ukraine?
Thank you, Brenda.
So yeah, if you have a chance, go onto their website. They've done an amazing job, and yeah, it looks like a very good program.
Yeah, there are a few, like I Can Host, I think. Like, there's a couple that we might recommend that have come through us through the Ukrainian community. But again, my concern is how are the hosts being vetted, and for Ukrainians, how are they? Like, they're vulnerable, right? They're coming in, maybe they don't speak much English, and they're women and children. And so I think it's up to us to just do everything we can to make sure that they're safe. So we're hoping we see some movement with that. I see somebody asking if we have connections with a law firm. I don't know about that. The rights obligations of hosting a refugee family. I'm not sure. I think that's a good question that we can take back. Don't want to get into the weeds there unless there's a lawyer on the call that knows that. So somebody is saying, I have a lawyer friend locally whom I can get some advice. So I think that's a really good idea, is to search for some advice. And I can definitely, Anna's on here as well. Anna, if you want to, or Frank, if you want to take those back to your teams, I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure if we want to talk about that here, because you gotta, if you're hosting a family, you got to ask the right questions too. And okay, who else do we have? Some more questions. Wendy, go ahead.
Oh, I just saw that. Could someone talk about how the matching of host and newcomer was? And we spent 2 weeks mapping out how we thought the process would go. And then we started to see that the government agencies were going to step in, or there might be someone locally. So all I can say is we've got a lot of ideas on what makes compatible or a conversation for compatibility, but we don't know how that's going to play out. We have to wait for the government to tell us what agency is going to make those decisions and then understand how we can fit into it. All we know is we can be a resource to support people in the conversation, no matter how that matching actually happens. But the answer is we have no idea at this point, because yesterday was the first time the government, the provincial government gave us any line of sight that there was going to be support.
Perfect, thank you.
Lisa, it's Frank here.
Yes.
I think we have to be very clear that we are not telling anyone that we have vetted or this is a good place to go. We are just basically coming up with a list of potential hosts that have offered space, not unlike a landlord. And we have a friend that's looking for an apartment. So we need to bring those two people together, and they need to make, sorry, apparently I'm really bad at this TV thing because only half my head's there. But it's basically, we know someone that's got an apartment space, whatever, we know someone that's looking for space, and then it's up to them to decide whether it's good space for them or not. What we're really hoping is these government agencies will come in and protect the newcomers that are coming in. We cannot accept that responsibility in any way, shape, or form.
Yes. Brenda, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was just wondering, Isaiah, the one concern that I keep hearing tonight is the fear that somebody won't leave. So it's a short-term accommodation. Have you guys ever run into that issue where you've made an agreement at the beginning, and also, do you guys have written agreements between the host and the refugees coming in? So I guess two parts. One is, do you do the contract, and have you had issues where you can't get someone to leave?
Yeah, two very good questions. So I'll begin with the contract piece of things. We have never had a formal written contract, but we do have verbal agreements before a guest will move in, where a host will just explain, this is what it's like sharing space in my home. And just, we're very clear at the beginning, like this is a short to medium term stay. This isn't a long-term stay. So that's my answer to the contract question. And that largely works really well. And it's mainly about clarifying expectations at the beginning. And in terms of like someone who doesn't want to leave, that has almost never happened. We've hosted through open homes about 100 families over the course of 3 or 4 years. And there's only two instances in 4 years where that has happened. And in that case, because we're not just individual hosts hosting on our own, but we're this wider community, the wider community, including myself and my colleague Lisa, we're able to problem solve with the host what that could look like. So I'm wondering if like Waterloo Region Mobilizes can perhaps play like a similar kind of community support role. And at the time too, we had relationships with other shelters in town, and we were able to kind of leverage that to smooth out those situations. So it does happen. It's quite rare. And with community support, problem solving is possible.
Thank you so much. Well, everyone, it is 8:59. Very aware of everyone's time. I know there's a lot of comments coming through. Perhaps we should do another evening with another focus. So I just invite you to reach out to us through our grassroots if you want to make contact and have some suggestions. Before we go, I just want to thank my housing team. Some of them are on the call tonight: Brenda, Wendy, Frank. If I've missed anybody, I want to thank our presenters, Isaiah and his team, and Gotham, Kate, Frank. I know you presented. Anna, thank you so much. I know Dan had to leave early. We were happy that he was here. I certainly don't want to miss anybody. I think I did it. So anyway, thank you so much. I am going to close the meeting down. It will be recorded. We'll have this up on our YouTube channel soon, hopefully. And again, if you have any questions, please just reach out through us through our website, which is wrgrassrootsresponse.ca. I'll type it in the chat.
Lisa, just a short tip. I see some, Ukrainian Russian last names and first names here. We are looking for Ukrainian and Russian speaking volunteers from Ukraine. If there is any family here, any person here interested, please reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, if you want to join the resource team, you can just take on the little bit that you want to do, but every little bit counts. Reach out to Anna. You can reach her through the website as well. If you know people that want to host, encourage them to fill out the housing form. We are keeping that. The region immigration partnerships do have eyes on that form as well. And hopefully, we can go ahead and start helping them with their process. So thank you again. Thank you, Linda. I'm glad you found it useful. Stephanie and Chuck, nice to see you. I heard you were getting a lot of people reaching out to support you. So I hope you're feeling like definitely come to us and we'll do what we can. Nice to see you both. And you're all so welcome. Thank you. It was just our pleasure to do this. And I think we could probably do it again. There's a meeting tomorrow night as well at Grassroots. Langfords, thank you so much. I've seen you on a few meetings. Thank you for coming. Anna, can you stay on the meeting for a little bit?
Yep.
Thank you. Bye, Gotham. Thank you so much.
Gotham, can I just say something while I have you here? When I attended that meeting I had that you had for applications, I was so touched by how kind you are. Honestly, there are some people that just, I don't know, the questions from the folks who don't even have Ukrainian passports, right? And you were just so kind, and it was a good life lesson for me, because I was looking at you and listening to what people are saying, like, how is he holding up and how he's not getting really annoyed, and you held it together. That was